So, we've come to the conclusion of my Hannibal reviews with the prequel to Silence of the Lambs and the final movie in this trilogy, Red Dragon. Red Dragon is a bit of a strange creature, as even though I cannot stand the director Brett Ratner and hate almost all of his films, this is quite honestly my favorite of the Hannibal franchise. And it's kind of hard to explain why. I mean, it's the only Hannibal movie that I actually bought the special edition for. Um, and I had to pay extra for that, by the way. But it's the only one that I did that for, and I just really love this movie. And I know it got positive reviews, but I don't. It never got the acclaim it deserved. Because Silence of the Lambs really got a lot of acclaim, and I feel like this movie deserves it as well. I think a lot of people say it's a bit too familiar, but I'd kind of go to if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They tried to change it with Hannibal, and that movie sucked. So if they're following the tried and true formula and it works, then I wouldn't fault them for that. Now, I prefer this film to Silence of the Lambs, as I already said, and for a couple of reasons. One, we see Hannibal in action, but unlike the previous movie, it's actually really well done. We actually see him getting caught, which I always wanted to see, and that's really cool. For the most part, this movie does follow the rule of show, don't tell. There's never a line that's like, oh yeah, this happened. No, they show that happening, and that's really awesome. Now, I know some stuff is better left to the imagination, but here I think it's warranted. And undoubtedly, it is less scary than Silence of the Lambs, but I consider this much more of a crime thriller than a straight horror film. A lot of the scenes of Edward Norton's house almost look like it's out of a cop show. There's a lot more screen time for Hannibal, uh, and Hopkins is just fantastic as always. But surprisingly, Ray Fiennes is just as good as Francis Dollarhide, the main antagonist. Unlike Buffalo Bill, Dollarhide is less realistic, but he also has a much more tragic character. And in my opinion, that makes up for the cliched backstory he has. Edward Norton gives a fantastic performance as Will Graham. Um, I prefer him to Clarice just because I like the damage that he's got. Clarice is more naive, I guess, and Graham is more seasoned, which I like. And it can be kind of hard to pull off a damaged character, but I feel like Edward Norton does it really well. Generally, he's a good actor, and I feel like this is one of his better performances. I also really love the chemistry he has with Lecter because those two hate each other, and it's interesting to see when they interact. And those scenes can be both funny and intense, which is really hard to pull off, but this film does it. And that's one of the reasons it kicks so much ass. Along with the score by Danny Elfman, I really like it. It almost sounds like a sinister carnival. You know, the music almost sounds like something you hear on a carousel, but eerie. And it feels like it's been with the franchise since the beginning. Even though it wasn't the main theme of the original, it just kind of it fits. You hear it and you're like Hannibal, and that's pretty awesome. And the overall look of the movie just kind of has a sense of dread to it, which I really like. And I find it kind of funny that this film came out exactly 1 year after Hannibal, almost like it was an apology, which, I mean, apology accepted, this movie kicks ass. I also enjoyed the late Philip Seymour Hoffman as Freddie Lowndes, because he's like the perfect obnoxious reporter character, and I really liked that. His death scene was pretty fucking brutal, to be honest. And to me, that was the point where the movie actually became scarier. That was the point when shit got real. The dude's in a wheelchair and he's fucking burning after he had his lips bitten off by Dollarhide. I like Dollarhide's little love story that he's got with that blind chick, Reba, I think's her name. That's really interesting because the other villains, in the first one, Buffalo Bill was a very realistic portrayal of a serial killer. Mason Verger, while a good concept, was just kind of and Francis Dollarhide's just an all-around good performance, and that's really cool. I like his relationship I like how socially inept he is too. That was kind of interesting to see because that does feel realistic, like an actual serial killer. Now, the only flaw that I can say this film has is I never really cared about Will's family. I cared a hell of a lot more for them than the family in Godzilla though. So I guess I can say that. Now this movie is just really good. I'm actually gonna give it a perfect 10 out of 10. I love this movie. Um, and the Hannibal series didn't stop here, but I'm not gonna review Hannibal Rising. You want my review for Hannibal Rising? Here it is. It fucking sucked. Here's my review for Hannibal Rising. I didn't like it. Thankfully, though, the awesome TV show that is currently airing more than made up for it. That's an awesome show if you guys haven't watched it. I'm not gonna review that, but I will say you guys should probably watch it. The Mason Verger episode where he cuts his face off is my favorite. That was awesome. Happened earlier than I'd expect, but whatever. So that's that. That concludes my Hannibal reviews. This is T Quentin 1 signing out.